Welcome to the Northern Collegiate Hockey Association here. Exclusive interview with Jim Olson, Commissioner of the NCHA. I'm Steve Schauer, Director of Communications. Jim, thank you for joining me.
Yeah, Steve, thanks for having me.
Opportunity here. We're kind of at the midpoint of the season to listen and hear from Jim, League Commissioner, and just some of the things that happened prior to the season up to this point, and kind of the prep as the playoffs are going to be fast approaching here in February. So, Jim, let's jump into it. Really, let's rewind before the season started. Some of the prep you had to do. I'd imagine one of the real big things that I'm interested in is, unfortunately, Finlandia had to close their doors down as a university, and really both the men's and women's programs got picked up and moved to Dubuque to start hockey. Can you kind of touch on that and maybe some of the other things to get this season up and running?
Yeah, anytime a school closes, it's a sad day. And it was a sad time because, Finlandia was a great part of our conference for many, many years. And I've made trips up to Houghton, been on campus several times, been at that rink, classic old barn as they think of it, for Division III hockey. It was cold. Man, was it cold in that place. But anytime you lose a school, it's sad. It was tough for the players, tough for the administration. And talking to their AD, Curtis Wittenberg, many a times over the course of that decision-making process, what that meant and how they're going to move forward. They wanted to find a home for their student athletes. They didn't want as they say it, they don't want the kids to suffer. And unfortunately, the players that were on campus, the men's and the women's program, they wanted to play hockey. They're, college hockey players, and they wanted to help find them a home. And while Dubuque ended up landing the team, and they're doing great things down in Dubuque with that program. We had to entertain a different offer from a different Iowa school first that was trying to help Finlandia out, and ultimately it didn't work out. And then Dubuque jumped at the opportunity, and just meeting with their athletic office, with their AD Nelson Edmonds, just really passionate about starting a program. They were ready and they were committed to jump in. And really, to me, I think in the backstory meetings, right, talking to the university president, Dr. Bullock, what a really great man, and just really passionate about not just getting a sports team, two sports teams at their school, but really helping find a home for these young men and women. And I think that really speaks volumes. That's, athletics, as right, from your background, it's an extension of the classroom, and really trying to give, Division III athletes this opportunity is really, really incredible. And what they pulled off in a very short window is nothing less than a community win. So it was very challenging, but it's looking back on it, very rewarding as well.
I would imagine for you, when the announcement kind of came that Finlandia was closing its doors and they wanted to keep the programs alive, the wheels started moving pretty fast for you in the conversations. But I remember at one point you said you drove out to Dubuque to check out the facilities that could potentially be there. And one of the things I remember you talking about, the passion and excitement for hockey in the city of Dubuque. Can you touch on that and the rink they have and just the city backing?
Yeah, so I made a little covert trip out there. I didn't tell anybody I was coming, just kind of drove. I wanted to see really, truly how far campus was from the rink, because, that's part of the college experience. If you don't get the students involved, that's what makes it fun. I remember, the years of refereeing college hockey and having the students in the building and making noise, and that's part of the environment. And you want to make sure you have that environment at a game. So I think, the 5-10 minute drive it is perfect. It's no different than a lot of our other schools, but beyond that, the commitment from that whole community down there is phenomenal. I was down at Dubuque for their opening night when they opened up with Trine at home, their first men's home conference series. And, the nice ceremony with the president of the youth hockey organization was there, and the rink is committed. The city is committed. It's the home of the Dubuque Fighting Saints, the USHL team, and they're committed. Just a really awesome facility. It's big. It's a couple 3,000 seat facility, but it's a really great venue. And they've done it right. Good locker rooms for their men's and women's programs already. A good facility even for visitors. It's not like we're cramming them in a closet. They have nice facilities for the visiting teams when they're there. They know how to do it right. and just everybody is committed and excited. Everybody knows it's a building process, that you don't just mysteriously pop up a great team, and they are committed to working on it. I've still exchanged emails with some of the staff over at UD, and they're committed to make a run at it. They're having success. Sometimes you got to look at, are you building, not just, are you getting all the wins? Are you high in the point total, but are you building? And on the men's side, they're building. They've had some success on the women's side with some wins. But both programs are going to grow. Both programs are going to keep winning. They're going to keep getting better. And they're going to be contenders here in a very short order of time here. I think they're really going to tip the scales and make it more enjoyable, more fun.
Last question I want to ask kind of on the preseason prep before the season began was, the hockey season is really November to March, kind of in that window, and some of it's crammed in there. I mean, really the prep for you is year round. And I think back to April when the athletic directors met, and I mean, that's quite a ways in front of when the season starts. I mean, what is some of the prep, months and months ahead of time that you're working on with ADs or presidents, excuse me, to get ready for November when the season gets rolling?
Yeah, really, it's more working with the ADs and the presidents. I try to keep the presidents informed about what's going on. We're a single sport conference, so that makes it a little bit different for them. But the prep for me it's consistent, but it's not heavy loads at one time, right? It's single sport, so it's 2 hours here, 2 hours there. Usually after work at night, I can sit down at a computer and pound out what I got to do. But it's prepping the next 2-year schedules. We did some good stuff, working with our coaches, working with the administrators. We got a great group of coaches, men's and women's side alone. Together, they're a phenomenal group of men and women that run our teams. Great group of administrators that are very committed and passionate about keeping the conference in a good place. We created this 1-year schedule. When Finlandia fell apart, unfortunately, when that school closed, we had to make a decision, because at that time, I'm starting to make an alternate schedule. What does it look like if we have an odd number of teams, and what does that look like for us, now an ad hoc schedule? How is this going to work? Well, one of the things I think is important is to get us on the same rotation as the other West conferences, the MIAC and the WAC, because that way, hopefully it makes it a little bit easier to get home and home series over 2 years scheduling cycle, just so that you can get your non-conference games and keep that strength of schedule in the West region up, because that's ultimately what's going to help your pairwise and get you into the national tournament. There's only one team that can win our league championship. So we've got to position and help our schools as best we can position themselves in the pairwise standings to hopefully get at-large bids if they don't win it outright. So, there's that stuff. A lot of times in you and I talk a fair amount here and there throughout the year, but it's just making sure that we're doing the best we can as a conference and that we're supporting the schools. This year, I know you took on a huge undertaking in the summer, converting our website to a different platform. So that's just one of those things I got to keep an eye on, make sure to check in with you once in a while, see how it's going. Chris Lindley does a great job trying to recruit officials during the summer as the director of officials. So he's always looking for, new people to come in and see who's going to come back, see who we've got to maybe kind of realign a little bit. So you're right, there's never a complete shutdown for me, but it's also, it's a good opportunity to just kind of get to know different people, look into different things, and just really stay connected. And that's, to me, that's the fun part, right? Gives me something else to do in the evening time. And, I love the game, or I wouldn't be around it for this long. So it's just another good opportunity.
You mentioned Chris Lindley, Director of Officials. I wanted to ask a question about him and the work that he's doing, recruiting, training, evaluating officials. You mentioned before kind of the Dubuque and the student athlete experience. Officiating is a part of that, making sure games are clean and run smoothly, and penalties and all those things. What has he been able to do in the communication with him to get officiating to be top notch?
Yeah, it's a struggle, and I was in that role for many years, right, from like 2007 until I became the interim commissioner just over a year ago. But that role is, I'd say feast or famine, but that's kind of what it comes down to. You're either swimming with officials or you got nobody. And it seems like, years ago we had the Adrian and Trine area where we didn't have a lot of officials, and I was putting people over from Chicago every couple of weeks to try to fill the slots. And now we've got a good crew of officials over there, and that's what's gonna happen in Dubuque. It's gonna grow. The first game I went to there with the men in the home, we had a local linesman really did a great job. And from there now we'll start to get that word out, and Chris will be able to recruit more over in that area. But thankfully Dubuque is still close to other officiating pods, if you will. It's only an hour and a half here from Madison area. A little bit over that from Milwaukee, Chicago. It's not a terrible drive. So it's good to get the crews out. Obviously there's USHL officials in the area. NAHL officials in the area. We can try to tap into those resources as well. But we all talk about the pandemic and everybody kind of sighs and shakes your head and say, oh, the pandemic, I don't want to talk about it again. But goods and bads. And if COVID did anything good in the world, we learned how to adapt to these online type meetings like this, because before I would have to almost get officials together face to face, try to, go over things, and we could do conference calls, but, sitting on a conference call where you can't see anything is it's a little bit more of a challenging environment, but now with the online portals that are available and the online education tools that are available, Zoom, like we're using here, we can absolutely get the officials together, and Chris does, he gets them together. He'll play video clips for them. He'll walk through things. The coaches are great about submitting videos when they just want clarification on things. We use those absolutely for educational purposes. The games I'm at, I still watch for a couple different things during the game, because the game is great. It's the greatest game out there, and just try to watch that and kind of help the whole conference grow. I think because we are a single sport, and I think all of the staff that we have has got an background at some degree in athletics. I think we just pool our resources and do everything we can to make it the best experience for our members and, for the student athletes. And that includes even the officials. Everybody I find is working hard to make it the best that we can make it, from coaches to officials, to the trainers group, to the SIDs, to the athletic directors, to the conference office staff. Everybody is trying to do the best that we can, and trying to make it the absolute best conference that we can. And, we just got to keep working together.
I would imagine you probably keep watching the games, so you still got a little bit of that official left in you.
There's a little bit there, a little bit.
When you look at the standings, Jim, on the women's side, Adrian, Lake Forest, St. Norbert tied at first, Aurora 2 points back. You go to the men's side, St. Norbert, Adrian, Shrine, Aurora. I mean, it's kind of a log jam in that top half on both sides. With the competitiveness and what that looks, what does that mean for the league?
Well, I think it's a couple of things. I think it shows development, right? There's teams at the top right now that you look at, especially on the men's side. Trine's always had a really good program. Coach Todd over there has done good things ever since they started their program and since he's been there. And now they're having the success, right? They're having the returning good quality hockey players, bring in some good quality hockey players, and they're right up at the top. And they're, it's up for anybody's game right now. It's anybody's to win or lose. I think really, when I look at it, it means that there's going to be some really competitive, good, hard-fought series here in the second half that are going to mean the world. And I hear coaches, hear them all talk about it at different venues at different times, but you can't give away any points in the league.
Yeah.
In those conference games, you've got to take care of business, as they say, and you got to win the games you should win. But the interesting part is, with the way this conference is right now, anybody can pretty much beat anybody on any different night. So your players have got to show up, and they've got to perform. They've got to play the game the right way. If you want to win, if you want to get the points, if you want to host in the playoffs, and if ultimately you get that far, you want to host the Harris Cup or the Slots Cup. So it's you're right. It's a bottleneck up top, but it also means it's going to be a fun second half.
You mentioned the playoffs. From your standpoint, the seat you sit in, prepping for the playoffs. I know it's December here, but it's not that far off.
No.
With some of the teams that have kind of risen to the top, does that make it easier or harder to start prepping for the playoffs, from scheduling and officials and getting the trophies where they need to be and all those things?
Yeah, I don't know that it's any easier or harder. I've been prepping for the playoffs since April, so it's we got to get a couple replacement trophies. We're working on that, because the ones we've had have been around for a while, and we want there to be a good representation rather of the achievement of winning the automatic qualifier into the NCAA tournament, of all of the sweat and everything that went into the season. So we want that to be a good representation for the teams. So we're working on that, getting banners and getting things prepared. I've got a couple cases of championship pucks sitting upstairs in the kitchen right now. So I think my wife wants me to find a different place for those. Got that stuff, trying to just be as much ahead of the game and prepared as we can possibly be when it gets to that time, because, in talking with the ADs right now, the men's and women's playoffs are going to mirror each other. In the past, they've had a weekend off, and the women have had like a Frozen Four kind of a thing, their last for the championship. Right now, they're going to mirror each other. So quarterfinal weekend, you're going to have men's 2 plus a possible mini game if needed, and the women are going to have 2 plus a mini game. The biggest challenge we have is, if in a shared venue, what do you do when you have men's and women's at both hosts? And it's exciting, but at the same time, we kind of looked ahead, and we are going to make sure that each gender gets the prime ice slot, if you will, just depending on the year. So in 2024, the athletic directors and we kind of talked about it, and we're going to make it that the women's conference will get the prime ice slot in a shared venue. So if you have the men's and women's at share rink, both at home for quarterfinals, the women will get the late start time in the even numbered years of the games played. Odd number of years, the men's get the late start time. So in 2024, if that happens, the women will play the late game, the men will play the early game, and we may have to look at adapting the schedule, just so that, we may not be able to play 2 games, because if that mini game happens, the last thing you want to do in the playoffs, upset the natural flow of warm up and getting kids ready. The last thing I want ever is some athlete to get hurt because of a delay at the start of a game. And everybody's got their routines, and, I want them to be as comfortable and, aligned as they can, because let's face it, for some of them, that's the highlight of their athletic career right there. If they're a senior and that's as far as they're going to go, they're going to enter the workforce, but in the same way, if you win it all, you could be moving on to the NCAA tournament where you could bring home a national championship. So we want everybody to be ready.
And while it may be a challenge for some schools because of one rink and having maybe these 2 playoff games on the same day, it's a benefit because both your teams are doing really well.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, Jim, when you throughout the season so far and you look at national rankings, the NCHA is always well represented. On the women's side, Adrian's ranked. St. Norbert is up there as well. On the men's side, at one point in October, 6 teams had got votes. What does that mean for the league to be on the national stage, to be recognized, or at least people talking about schools here in the Midwest?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a lot indicative of really the success our programs have had. National championships, with Adrian winning the men's national championship recently, St. Norbert winning 5 national championships here not that long ago, actually. They've had a lot of success, so that absolutely draws attention. They play a good, tough, competitive schedule, both in conference and in the non-conference, which helps, because they get recognition out east from the east schools. People stand up and pay attention to that kind of stuff. I think the coaches are good stewards of their votes, if you will, and those putting the votes in for that, for those polls, they're recognized in the programs that deserve to be recognized. But I mean, having schools that just get votes like that and teams that get votes, it's awesome for the league, and it definitely shows the competitive edge that we have, and how tight the league is. Unfortunately, you're playing the teams twice, and you're going to beat each other up a little bit, and you're going to have hard fought, good competition. But in the long run, that gets you ready for the playoffs. That gets you ready for the national tournament as well, if you're fortunate enough to get into it. So men's and women's side is going to be a good competitive second half, and hopefully it's a good prep time for the playoffs and beyond.
Well, Jim, I want to thank you for your time here to answer a couple of questions and give some of the viewers an insight of what a commissioner does for hockey conference. So I appreciate your time, and we'll touch base later in the season and maybe do this again around the playoff time. So thanks, Jim.
Yeah, it sounds great. Thanks.